Devastating moment. Waitress feeds homeless man. You won't believe what happens at 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m., the kind of hour where shadows stretch long, and everything seems a little wrong. In a diner, forgotten by time and lost on the outskirts of town, the neon sign flickered softly, its hum the only sound slicing through the silence. And there she was, Jessica, a waitress with kind eyes, slinging hash browns and coffee, her smile a small light in the dim glow. But that night, something stirred the stillness. As Jessica passed the window, she spotted him, a homeless man, wrinkled and ragged, curled up on the sidewalk, his breath misting in the cold air like a ghost trying to hold on. Something about him pulled at her heart, and in that instant, she felt a tightness in her chest, an urge impossible to ignore. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was part of a bigger story, one she desperately needed to uncover. With trembling hands, she filled a to-go box with steaming food. The aroma wafted through the diner, tantalizing and warm, contrasting sharply with the chill outside. The moment she stepped outside, a chill ran down her spine. As she approached him, the hairs on her neck stood tall. His face was a tapestry of life's hardships etched deep into his skin. Her heart raced. Why couldn't she just turn around? Why this man? Suddenly, the world around her faded. The street lights dimmed, the diner grew quiet, and her heartbeat echoed in her ears. She knelt beside him, extending the food like an offering. But as he opened his eyes, a flash of something dark passed over his features. Fear? Anger? Or was it something deeper, something that felt ominous? She almost pulled back, but the connection held her grounded. Overhead, a cloud shifted, and the moonlight illuminated his face, revealing a glimmer of tears mixed with unspoken stories of despair. Just then, from across the street, a figure emerged cloaked in shadows, watching. The air thickened, making Jessica's skin crawl. The hairs on her arms stood up as an icy wind rushed past her. She turned, but the figure vanished. Did anyone else see? Her very soul felt exposed, and an echo of unease droned deep within her. What did she step into, and why did it feel like destiny? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Jessica's breath hitched as the homeless man reached up, his fingers trembling like autumn leaves. He opened his mouth, but the words that tumbled out were choked, laced with urgency. You have to listen. They're coming for you, for me, for all of us. The weight of his words hung in the air, a thick fog creeping over her chest. Who was coming? A sense of dread wrapped around her heart, squeezing tight. Just then, the distant wail of sirens cut through the stillness, a reminder of the world she'd left behind moments ago. The man's eyes widened, pleading, and as Jessica glanced back to where the shadow had stood, it felt like they were being watched from every angle, a predatory presence lurking just beyond sight. Her fight or flight instinct kicked in, but she was rooted to the spot, caught between compassion and fear. Then, like a pulse quickening, the diner's door swung open behind her. Jess! A voice called, but she barely heard it over the static of chaos brewing around her. What price would she pay for this moment of kindness? She grabbed the box of food back from him, her hands shaking. Uncertainty pulsed within her, and as the sirens grew closer, she turned to face the man. What do you mean? She asked, breathless and desperate for answers. The night felt charged, as if it held secrets yearning to be discovered. What would happen next? Would the truth reveal itself, or would they both disappear into the darkness? The man's gaze was intense, almost penetrating, and Jessica found herself leaning closer, despite the fear clenching at her gut. The ones in the shadows, he rasped, his voice falling like gravel. They're not just watching. They want something from us, from you. The sirens grew louder, the sound swelling until it was a cacophony drowning her thoughts. She stepped back instinctively, her pulse racing, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the cold night air. "What do you mean? Who are they?" He shook his head, his expression shifting from urgency to despair. "You need to get inside, Jess. Now. That door," he pointed to the diner, "is your only safe place. You don't know what they can do." Before she could respond, the ominous figure she'd seen across the street reappeared in her peripheral vision. It was closer now, shifting like a dark cloud against the moonlight. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest. She could feel the shadows dancing at the edges of her mind. Then a loud crash erupted from the diner, shattering the tension. Jessica turned in horror. A chair had toppled over, and from the messy chaos, her coworker Marco sprinted out, panic-ridden across his face. "Jess! Get back inside!" he yelled, glancing sideways as if something worse was creeping up behind him. She hesitated, torn between the urgency of the man's warnings and Marco's frantic gestures. Then the atmosphere changed. The winds howled, and she swore she could hear whispers, flowing like a chilling breeze. "You'll end up like me!" the homeless man cried out, his voice almost lost in the growing chaos that surrounded them. Just then, another figure burst onto the scene, a woman with wild hair and haunting eyes. "Run! They're coming!" she screamed, grabbing Jessica's arm with a grip that felt like iron. Jessica's heart thudded. Who was this woman? The darkness around them seemed to swirl, almost alive, and Jessica felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. Marco was shouting something, pointing back to the diner, but his words drowned beneath the wave of panic crashing over her. The shadows were there, reaching, grasping, a sinister blanket threatening to swallow them whole. Time tethered, stretching endlessly as she grappled with the decision to flee or fight. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. What was happening? Who were these people? And what did they want from her? The woman pulled Jessica back towards the diner, her grip tight, determination blazing in her eyes. "We can't face them out here." She was dragging Jessica abruptly when the air grew colder still, the shadows flickering in and out of existence like a cruel trick of the light. A low growl echoed from the depths of the alley nearby, sending tremors of fear down Jessica's spine. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but that was the last thing she felt she could do. As they approached the diner, the doors creaked open, revealing the faint yellow light like a lighthouse beckoning for lost ships. Jessica turned just one last time. The homeless man's expression was one of pure desperation, as if he were silently pleading for her to understand the depth of the danger. Then, without warning, the whispering shadows surged forward, a tide of malevolence unified in purpose. With each step cracking against the pavement, Jessica felt the weight of the moment crashing over her. The diner was just steps away, but the shadows were hungry, closing in, ready to claim what they sought. What needed to be uncovered? And were they truly safe behind those diner walls, or was this only the beginning of a terror yet to come? The diner's door swung open, and Jessica stumbled inside, the warmth washing over her like a lifeline. She could barely catch a breath, heart pounding in her ears, the shadows still looming outside, as if the darkness itself was trying to claw its way through the door. "Lock it! Lock it!" Marco urged, his voice shaking as he backed away from the diner's threshold. His eyes darted nervously to the windows, watching for any sign of the encroaching evil. Jessica turned and slammed the door shut, the sound reverberating in the quiet, almost surreal moment that followed. The little diner was a refuge, the scent of frying food masking the musty smell of anxiety, but even that comfort felt tenuous. They huddled around the tiny tables, breathless and wide-eyed, waiting for the chaos outside to define their next move. The woman who had pulled Jess to safety, her wild hair dancing with every breath, scanned the diner's confines, locking eyes with each person present as if searching for something. "Who are you?" Jessica finally managed, her gaze darting from the stranger to Marco. "Do you even know what's going on?" "I'm Clara," the woman responded, voice steady despite the flicker of fear in her wide eyes. "And we don't have time. They'll be here. You might not realize it, but they're after you, Jess." And you can't hide from them. Jessica's stomach twisted at the implications of those words. Why? What do they want? Her mind raced, the weight of the moment pressing down with suffocating intensity. They want to take what is yours, Marco cut in sharply, stepping closer. And it's not just your life. It's something deeper. The shadows outside seemed to pulse with anticipation, the growl from before echoing ominously in her memory. As Clara paced with frayed energy, her voice soon escalated into urgency. We have to prepare to fight or flee. They won't hesitate to break inside. I've seen them, it's chaos, and it spreads fast. Jessica's heart sank. They wanted her, but for what? The questions swirled in her mind like a storm, and the answers eluded her. She was just a waitress. What could she possibly possess that would draw such dark attention? A shattering sound resonated through the diner's windows, community spirits rising in alarm. They're here! Marco screamed. Get away from the windows! The lights flickered once, then twice, the room bathed in flashes of stark white before plunging back into darkness. Panic erupted as the few remaining customers screamed. Gripping her chair, Jessica felt the world around her collapse, everything blurring into a cacophony of chaos. People scattered, ducking behind the scarred diner booths. Clara approached Jessica urgently, grabbing her arm. Listen, they don't just want to come inside. They want to take you, Jess. If we're going to stand a chance, you need to face them. Only you can fight them back. The shadows began to slip through crevices at the edges of the room, flickering like flames. Their whispers grew louder, enveloping her. Jessica's vision blurred, mixing dread and exhilaration, a tide pulling her in two directions. Jess! Marco yelled, breaking through the din. You have to make a choice. Fight or save yourself. Clara pushed closer, their faces inches apart, eyes locked in a fierce determination. You can't let them win. They'll take everything if you don't act. Jessica's heart raced as she stood firm, thoughts racing, realization dawning. In that moment, a pulse of warmth surged through her, a hint of solidarity cracking through the cold fear gripping her spirit. Could she really stand against the encroaching darkness? Did she even have the strength? As the shadows surged closer, Jess felt empowered, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But just then, the door creaked open again, this time wider than before, revealing an eye of seething black. What lay beyond those darkened doors? What choice would Jessica dare to make amidst the chaos closing in on her? The door creaked, swaying slowly on its hinges. A chill swept through the diner, cold and unnatural, wrapping itself around Jessica. The shadows outside twisted into shapes that writhed and lunged at the light, hunger radiating from them. Jess could feel the oppressive pain of their gaze, a pull so strong it made her stomach churn. Don't, Clara warned, her voice a harsh whisper. Don't look directly at them. They feed on fear. Marco shifted uneasily, and his breathing quickened. What do we do now? He asked, panic creeping in. The patrons behind them huddled together, eyes wild with terror, holding onto each other like lifelines in a storm. Jess gripped the edge of the table, grounding herself. If they want me, maybe I need to give them what they want. The words tumbled out, defiance punctuating her fear. She took a hesitant step toward the door, ready to face the black eye waiting beyond. No! That's what they want! Clara shouted, panic slicing through her steady demeanor. If you go out there, you won't come back. We cannot be weak, Jess. We can fight this. The whispers intensified, rising and falling like a sinister melody. The shadows plagued her thoughts, dredging up memories of her childhood nightmares concealed under her bed and the fear of the dark when she was just a girl. They were a cruel reminder that not all monsters remained in the shadows. I'm tired of running, Jessica murmured. Her heart thundered resolute in its pounding. With one look at Clara and Marco, two people brought together by the dark, now riding the edge of hope, she swung the diner door wide open. No! Marco screamed, but it was too late. As she stepped outside, the air electrified with a twisted kind of energy. The growl rumbled stronger, a low hum that gripped her as she faced the darkness. Shadows reached out, tendrils of despair wrapping around her limbs, trying to ensnare her. She felt the weight of countless eyes on her, nearly crushing her spirit. "Why?" she called into the void, her voice shaking but fierce. "What do you want from me?" For a moment, the chaos abated. The shadows paused, as if drawn to her vulnerability. Then, as if sensing her courage, they responded in low, guttural whispers. It was a voice she didn't recognize, eerily familiar and absolute, echoing in her mind. "Your essence. Your fear is our sustenance." A whirlwind of emotions clashed inside her, a potent blend of anger and empowerment. "You won't have it!" she shouted defiantly, her voice rising above the din. With that surge of courage, she felt something crack deep within her chest, a light flickering to life. "Clara! I need your help!" she cried, pulling at the thin strands of bravery woven through Clara's earlier words. Clara rushed to her side, eyes flickering with determination. "We can do this together, Jess!" She reached for Jess's hand, fingers entwining in a show of solidarity. The shadows recoiled as they both stood their ground, holding tight to one another. The darkness appeared to shudder, wrestled by the burst of warmth igniting in the space between them. But just as they began to gain control, a crack split the air, a blinding white light erupted, momentarily illuminating the diner behind them. A figure materialized in the glow, a silhouette that seemed to command the shadows. "Enough!" a voice boomed, resonating like thunder. "Jess, you must decide." A heavy silence descended, the darkness lurking impatiently, waiting for her choice. Who was this newcomer? What did it mean for her fight against the encroaching doom? Jessica's heart raced, pounding as she faced the unknown. Everything hinged on this moment. Would she reach for courage, or would she retreat into the shadows of fear? The figures in the doorway beckoned, yet uncertainty clawed at her. What price would she pay for the power she was beginning to feel? Another flash illuminated the shadows, and for one fleeting second, Jessica glimpsed the haunting faces twisted in agony, the glint of a destiny swirling just beyond her grasp. The moment hung precariously heavy, a decision poised to shift the balance between light and darkness eternally. What would she become? Would she step forward, or be lost forever? The voice reverberated in Jessica's ears, a command woven with urgency and power. It cut through the tension like a knife. Who was this figure, and why did she feel a strange familiarity with the voice? Her skin prickled as the shadows swayed like a tide, eager to devour the light. "Jess." Clara's grip tightened. "Stay with me. You can't enough." The figure boomed again, stepping forward into the fading light. Jess squinted against the brightness, struggling to take in the newcomer. As the figure emerged, all she could see was an outline draped in a cloak, shimmering with flicker after flicker of luminescent hues, almost like it was part of the very light itself. A face remained obscured, features hidden beneath a hood, but the energy radiating from it was palpable, electrifying the very air around them. "I've come to guide you," the figure continued, their tones shifting, imbued with a strange warmth. "But first, you must make a choice of sacrifice." "Sacrifice?" Jess echoed, confusion tightening around her heart like a vice. The shadows surged, hungry for the slightest crack in her resolve. "Your fear gives them power, Jess," the figure explained, stepping closer, the brightness blinding. "Face that which haunts you. Only then can you become what you are meant to be." "What if I can't?" She felt sick with doubt, a weight pressing down on her chest like a stone. The memories of darkness, of nights spent fighting unseen terrors, clawed their way back to the surface. Marco's voice broke through her thoughts, raw and fearful. "This is insane. They'll swallow her whole." A moment stretched painfully. Would she really give herself over to the very thing that had brought her such dread? The shadows lurched back, as if tasting her hesitation. They hungered for it. "Jess, you have the light within you. Don't you remember?" Clara's voice was a beacon cutting through the dark. "You were never afraid of the monsters, they were afraid of you. Fight back." Jess closed her eyes, searching within for that flicker of light she had felt earlier, the warmth that urged her forward. But the shadows whispered again, a chorus of fears resurfacing. "You can't win. You'll always be theirs, and oh! She screamed, the word tearing from her throat as she opened her eyes. In an explosive rush, Jess turned her back on the beckoning shadows and faced the figure bathed in light. I choose! Light erupted from her core, spilling outward as tendrils of radiant energy wrapped around her. It pulsated like a heartbeat, bright and fierce, pushing back against the darkness. The shadows recoiled, wailing desperately. The figure stepped closer, its arm reaching out. Embrace it, Jess! Accept all parts of who you are, light and dark! But as the shadows shrieked, blaring waves of anguish ricocheted in her mind, the memory of fear like an echoing drum. A split second longer, and she could feel the pressure in her head, hazy voices whispering doubts. Was she truly ready for this? What if she was crushed beneath their weight, consumed by her own darkness? A flash of determination surged through her, igniting a deep fire she never realized was there. I am not afraid of you. I reclaim my fear. As she shouted those words, the air shifted. The figure surged forward, appearing more solid with the light pouring from Jess. Shadows writhed, shrieking like banshees as the energy pushed them back. Would it be enough? Was she strong enough to wield this power? Together! Clara yelled, and in one synchronized movement, both women thrust their energies toward the encroaching darkness. The shadows screamed, their cacophony reaching heights of agony. The figure's presence swelled, weaving through the light as if directing a symphony. But just as victory felt within grasp, the shadows lunged forward, desperate in their ferocity, and suddenly the figure gasped. Jess! The connection! Its voice faltered, panic rippling through the bright energy. What was happening? Jessica felt a tremor, one that rattled her very being. Could she bear the weight of this newfound power? Would she slip and fall into the very void they sought to escape? As she prepared for the onslaught, one pressing thought clawed at her mind. Would they make it back, or would she lose everything in the chaotic storm of the fight? Then the ground shuddered beneath her feet. The moment stretched, teetering on the brink. What would happen next? Would she harness the light, or be consumed by the shadows? Would she rise, or would she fall? The tumult that followed was dizzying, swirling gusts of energy igniting like fireworks across the desolate ground. Jess's heart raced, the pulsing light from within her contrasting starkly with the encroaching dark. Shadows lunged again, a monstrous wave crashing against their combined force. Hold, hold! Clara shouted, her voice cracking under the strain. The shadows pressed relentlessly, pulling desperately at the edges of their light. Each foot they gained felt like a personal defeat, yanking and tugging at the very fabric of Jess's resolve. Jess, focus on the light. The figure's voice cut through the chaos once more, steady and commanding. You are not just a beacon, you are a tempest. A tempest. The words spun in her mind, igniting a flicker of strength deep within her. She drew from it, letting it swell, watching as the shadows hesitated for just a moment. Within that fleeting breath, Jess took a step forward. She squeezed her eyes shut and directed all her energy toward that vulnerable place inside her, the fear, the doubt, the memories that wrapped around her like vines trying to suffocate her spirit. With every shuddering breath, she pulled strength from them instead. I remember that I am more than my fear. Light exploded from her, charging forth like a tidal wave. The shadows writhed, shrieking in a chorus of horror as Jess unleashed not just light, but every ounce of pain they had ever inflicted. It poured from her like molten gold, scorching their darkness, revealing what lay beneath: twisted forms, monstrous faces, beings long removed from their former selves, trapped in tectonic grief and rage. For a moment, the darkness hung back, stunned. The figure stood firm beside Jess, its outline growing even brighter in her strengthening glow. Let go of the past. Here and now is where you find your power. But as Jess exhaled, she became aware of the weight returning, the pull of her fears, the flickering doubts that whispered sweetly, attempting to undo her resolve. Can you truly stand against them? They are endless, a voice taunted from the edge of her consciousness, swirling around like thick smoke. You can't fight what's part of you. No! Jess roared, feeling the light pulsate within her, answering the shadows with clarity. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for Clara, for Marco, for all the people who had fallen prey to the darkness. The figure beside her pulsed in agreement, and suddenly it transformed, shadow merging with light, revealing a visage of strength, a face she couldn't quite make out but felt inexplicably connected to. Together, we are the balance. Draw power from my light, Jess. As she channeled her rising fear and the figure's radiant energy, a spiraling vortex of color engulfed them, drawing the shadows in like moths to the flame. It struck with a blistering brightness, filling every crevice with a zest that pulsed with life and resilience. But before Jess could celebrate this surge, the shadows lashed back, not retreating but coiling. You can't escape. Echoes of her own insecurities reverberated, deafening. An icy grip closed around her heart. Were they right? Could she, in all her rawness, truly balance the light with the dark? The ground seemed to quake beneath them, reality shimmering as the shadows pulled at her, threatening to drown her once more. Then she saw it, the heart of the storm, a gateway, pulsating and inviting yet terrifying, a connection to the abyss. What is happening? Clara shouted, panic mixing with determination in her eyes. Jess, the figure urged, urgency coloring its tone. You must choose. Will you embrace all that you are, or let them claim you? Time slowed. Jess felt suspended between two worlds, one radiating light, the other engulfed in darkness. Her pulse quickened, every ounce of her being vibrated with the monumental choice before her. As the shadows surged, ready to engulf her once more, she steadied herself, drawing deeply on the light of those who believed in her. And with one massive inhale, she prepared to step forward into the chaos. What lay beyond the doorway? Would she emerge victorious, a bridge uniting light and darkness, or would she be lost in the void forever? And just as she was about to leap, the shadows whispered sweetly in her ear, what if it's all a lie? That question lingered, spiraling through the air like an ominous storm cloud, leaving Jess teetering on the edge of decision. What would she choose? The shadows twisted closer, suffocating Jess with their icy breath, threading despair through the folds of her mind. The whisper echoed, tempting her to falter. What if it's all a lie? It vibrated inside her, growing louder as the darkness lunged, its forms shifting and churning. No! Jess screamed, her lungs bursting with the force of her defiance. She stood her ground, heart pounding furiously in her chest. Clara was behind her, fierce determination glinting in her eyes, anchoring Jess to the light. Every ounce of Jess's reality teetered on this precipice, one moment of vulnerability away from collapse. The gateway pulsed before her, vibrant and inviting yet ominous. We are waiting for you, the shadows crooned, their voices a melodious chant that wrapped around her like a shroud. Embrace us. Relinquish control. It's easier this way. But that familiar flicker of strength, the tempest inside her ignited once more. She could not yield. Jess thought of Marco, the way his laughter brightened her darkest days, the warmth in his eyes like sunlight after a storm. She thought of Clara, relentless in her fight against the shadows, a sister forged in hardship. I wouldn't give up on them. Again, she drew from the deep reservoir of belief pooling within. Light burst forth in a wild frenzy, ripping into the darkness. It roared around her, scorching the phantoms that crawled close, revealing their grotesque forms more clearly. They writhed, and Jess saw flickers of souls trapped in endless pain, once heartbeats like her own, now mere echoes of anguish. Together, the figure beside her intoned, power surging through them both, tethering their essences. Focus your will. Unite. Jess felt the light melding with her fears. It resonated in her chest, layering her insecurities into something new, more potent. The vortex tightened around her. This isn't just mine, she shouted, voice breaking as she poured every ounce of love, pain, and longing into it. The shadows recoiled, shrieking. You cannot fight us. We are part of you. No! Jess cried out, fury giving breath to her courage. You're just a part, not the whole. With one fierce push, she stepped toward the gateway, feeling the light pulse through her, washing over her like a tidal surge against a dam about to break. I am more! The shadows howled, desperation clawing at the edges of their voices. The pull of light surged through the gateway like a whirlwind, crackling with energy that threatened to explode. A blinding flash illuminated the case, absorbing Jess in its dazzling glow. The world swirled, and time slipped away, seconds stretching into eternity as the weight of the shadows cracked under the brilliance. "Jess!" Clara shouted, but her voice felt distant, a mere whisper in the raging storm. Then, silence fell. The noise of the shadows ceased abruptly, as if someone had hit the mute button on their malevolence. Jess gasped, the sudden absence of sound startling in the aftermath of chaos. The light pulsated around her, an energy that hummed with life, vibrant and electric, ready to embrace her. But before she could grasp what this meant, flickers of shadow pulled together at the edges of the vortex. They hesitated, forms solidifying as monstrous faces re-emerged, staring at her with haunting recognition. "No," Jess muttered, the walls of confidence tightening around her heart. The shadows were reforming. They weren't gone, they were just waiting for her next move. As they coiled and stretched, ready to strike, a realization hit her like a lightning bolt. What if, she whispered, understanding threading through her mind. What if I have to face them, not just fight? Her heart raced. Would accepting them shatter everything she had fought for, or could it lead to a new kind of freedom? And just as she braced herself for the answer, the shadowy tendrils lunged forward, and she felt their cold grasp. It was time to confront the truth, her truth. What would she uncover once she looked into the heart of her own darkness? Jess's breath hitched as the shadows engulfed her, their icy fingers curling around her wrists, sending chills racing up her spine. Each ghostly touch was a reminder of her own fears, of moments lost and dreams discarded. She felt the weight of the darkness press against her chest, squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. "Face them," the voice rang in her ears, a stubborn echo that refused to fade. Clara's presence flickered like a candle in the wind, a spark against the overwhelming gloom. Jess steadied herself, all her instincts screaming to fight, to run. But the weight of uncertainty pulled her deeper. "What if I do?" she murmured, fear lacing her voice. "What if I confront the truth?" The shadows shifted at her question, swaying as if anticipating her next move. Their forms twisted into the faces of her past, moments of regret, lost friendships, lost love, the fear of never being enough. They leered at her, feeding off her hesitation, hungry for her surrender. "Do you see them?" Jess whispered, barely able to contain her growing panic. "Or are you just a figment of my imagination?" The shadows responded with a subtle hum, a collective exhale that resonated within her. They were real. They were part of her. She gasped, realization dawning like the first light of morning breaking through the night. "I can't defeat you, not like this." Clenching her jaw, she drew a deep breath, wading into the depths of her dread. "But maybe I can understand you." With a flick of will, Jess focused on a figure materializing before her, its features forming from chaos. It took shape, resembling Marco, his eyes alight with the warmth she remembered. A mixture of pain and love pooled in her heart. She was forced to confront not just the specter of her greatest loss, but the fear of never seeing him again. "Marco," she breathed. "I miss you. I miss us." His silhouette wavered, an echo of laughter now laced with sorrow. "You've always chased light, Jess." His voice was both familiar and haunting. "But you can't ignore the darkness. It's woven into every strand of who you are." "No!" she shouted, rage igniting within her. "I wouldn't let you, any of you, define me." The shadows recoiled, flickering in surprise. Could it be that she was stronger than they believed? In that moment, Jess grasped something vital, embracing every part of herself, even the fears and regrets, was the key to breaking their hold. Fueled by newfound resolve, Jess extended her hands toward the swirling darkness. "You're part of my journey, yes. But I choose how to navigate this path." The shadows shrieked in rage and denial, flinging themselves at her like a torrent, but Jess stood firm, light radiating from her core. She swirled her own essence, merging the light with the darkness. It was turbulence, a storm racked with emotion, pain, loss, hope, all coalescing into a force stronger than the shadows. As they clashed, a blinding light erupted around her. Words spun in her mind, a mantra forged in anguish and love. You do not own me. I am more. In a final surge of determination, she cast the light outward, watching as it pierced the dark, illuminating facets of every shadow that threatened her. Faces twitched, frowns softened, and piercing eyes turned to wonder. But as the chaos subsided, something unexpected broke through. A figure emerged from the shadows, more tangible than the rest. The specter took a step closer, its face strikingly familiar. It wore Jess's own features, reflecting her pain, her triumph, and her deepest fears. She gasped, dread unfurling like a dark blossom. No! What are you? The figure smiled, a bittersweet expression filled with understanding. I am you, Jess. The part you've hidden away. Dread coiled tighter in Jess's gut. Understanding waltzed dangerously close to horror. What was she now forced to confront, staring into the mirror of her turmoil? What if accepting you is the only way to truly be free? The question lingered, thick and heavy, as the shadows lurked at the periphery, awaiting her answer. The battle was far from over. The shadowed figure standing before Jess pulsed with an energy that sent ripples of fear through her. She felt an overwhelming urge to retreat, to shield herself from this reflection of everything she wished to forget. Heart pounding, she clenched her fists. What do you want from me? The doppelganger's eyes softened, yet there was an intensity that held Jess captive. To show you the truth and the strength that lies within it. But you're not real! Jess shouted, her voice trembling. You're just a nightmare. No, Jess, the figure replied, its voice smooth yet unwavering. I am the parts of you that have been buried under regret and shame. You've run from me long enough. The shadows around her whispered, encircling her like a tempest, mocking her fight. Their chilling breaths brushed against her skin, teasing her vulnerability. Embrace her, they hissed, or be lost forever. Jess swallowed hard, hot tears stinging her eyes. The face staring back at her was one she had avoided in mirrors for years. She remembered the times she'd walked away from opportunities, the ways she'd chosen avoidance over confrontation. Every rejection and moment of fear echoed in her mind. I don't want to be that person. Being brave isn't about never feeling fear, the figure responded, its voice growing stronger. It's about facing it head on. As the shadows twisted and writhed, Jess struggled to find her footing. The ground beneath her felt like it could crumble away at any moment, yet something ignited within her a flicker of defiance. Maybe you're right, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe it is time. With her heart racing, Jess took a tentative step forward, eyes locked onto her own reflection. I choose to understand you. Instantly, the air thickened, charged with energy. The shadows recoiled, their shrieks piercing the charged atmosphere. Jess pressed on, determination echoing in her heart. I won't hide from you anymore. Bright tendrils of light shot from her heart, intertwining with the silhouette in front of her. The connected energy surged, pulsating with shared memories. Moments of laughter, tears, and joy twirled together, creating a tempest of light that tore through the darkness. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of despair clashing against her resolve. What was happening? The reflection gasped, eyes wide with realization. This is who I am, Jess shouted back. Every piece of me, every flaw and triumph. The shadows darkened, rage fueling their assault. Yet, with every pulse of light, Jess's presence grew stronger, more defined. The specter began to smile, the tightness around their eyes melting away. I see you, it whispered. You are not just fear. The ether around them began to swell, forming a vortex of swirling light and shadow, pushing against the chaos. Jess stood firm, heart alight with the realization that her fears didn't overpower her. They were simply pieces of her puzzle. Suddenly, the whirlwind imploded, and everything came crashing down in a brilliant flash. Jess blinked, the landscape shifting in an instant. Now she stood in a vast, empty space, vibrant and alive, colors swirling and expanding around her. But trepidation gripped her heart. A new voice echoed in the distance, low and foreboding. You have taken your first steps, but the true test is yet to come. Dark shapes loomed on the horizon, larger and more ominous than ever before. Jess's breath quickened, realization dawning. This was not the end, it was merely the beginning of an even greater battle. Could she withstand what lay ahead, and would the light she summoned be enough? The ground trembled as another figure emerged, this one far more dangerous than her earlier reflection. She struggled to hold her ground, dread pooling in her stomach. "Welcome back," Jess whispered, a voice like smoke curling around her thoughts. Another challenge lay ahead, and Jess was left gripping the remnants of her courage, unsure if it would be enough. What awaited her now? The shadows loomed closer, their forms shifting and swirling like a dark tempest threatening to consume her whole. Jess felt a chill run down her spine, but her resolve began to crystallize. This was the moment her journey had led her toward. "Who are you?" she called out, but the voice echoing in the distance only deepened the uncertainty that gnawed at her heart. "What do you want from me?" "I am what you feared, Jess," the figure replied, its form materializing into a grotesque silhouette that mirrored her own insecurities. "I am the shadow of doubt that wraps around your heart, the fear of stepping beyond your comfort. You cannot defeat me until you accept me." "No!" Jess shouted, shaking her head violently. She gripped her fists tighter, mustering strength against the chill that enveloped her. "You are not me! You are what I refuse to be!" The shadow folded its arms, gaze piercing through her. "But you are no less afraid. Deep down, you know I am the voice that has whispered your failures." A tremor ran through Jess's core, yet she pushed it away. She had faced down fear before. It wasn't easy, but each time, she had emerged stronger. And now? Now wasn't the time to shrink back. She had chosen to fight. "Your time is up," Jess declared, feeling warmth ignite inside her. The radiance of friends, of hope, surged within her. "I will not be defined by my fears." The air thickened at her proclamation, charge crackling like static. The shadow hissed, a blend of disdain and fear flickering across its twisted face. In its fury it lunged at her, but instead of backing down, she stepped toward it, her heart blazing with defiance. "I embrace you!" she shouted, a cathartic release spilling from her as tendrils of light burst forth, entwining with the darkness creeping in. It was time to show them she could wield both light and dark, together in harmony. "I choose this no matter how difficult." For an instant, the world paused, the light and dark meeting in a fierce explosion of energy, colliding like waves crashing against the rocky shore. The shadow shrieked, a cacophony of anguish as Jess pointed her fingers at it, pouring all her memories, all her struggles, into that single connection. She was more than just light, she was strength born from pain, a warrior shaped by life itself. Suddenly, in a brilliant flash, the whirlpool of energy enveloped her, absorbing the shadow into her own essence. "I integrate you," she chanted. "You are a part of me, but you do not define me." With one final surge of determination, Jess let the energy explode outward. It rippled, shattering the confines of the darkness, and in that magnificent moment, the shadow collapsed, crumbling to dust. The unsettling weight lifted, and everything around her brightened. She stood alone in that vast expanse, the darkness fading into remnants, scattering like leaves in the wind. The colors surrounding her whirled with vibrancy, fresh and alive, a reflective canvas of her triumph. "I did it," she whispered, breathless, shoulders relaxing as relief washed over her. "I accept all of who I am." But as the sparkle of hope flickered in her chest, Jessica remembered the faces of the people she cared for: Marco, Clara. They were still in the diner, standing on the precipice of an unspeakable terror. She hadn't come this far only to leave them behind. With renewed urgency, the colors around her began to blend into light. "I'm coming!" she shouted into the open expanse, the promise reverberating back to her. In a flash, she found herself back at the door of the diner, staring into the familiar faces of fear and hope. Marco stood with Clara, wide-eyed, uncertainty etched on their faces, shadows lurking at the windows still pressing in. "Jess!" Clara cried, relief flooding her features. "You're back! What happened?" "I faced it," Jess replied, heart swelling with strength and knowledge. I learned to embrace both the light and the dark within me. With that, she stepped forward, eyes blazing with newfound purpose. Together, we can overcome this. The shadows hissed, thrumming with malevolence, but Jess could feel the strength she forged just moments before coiling within her. She was emboldened by the connection. She now understood the importance of embracing her true self. Let us show them what we can do, she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. As Clara and Marco stepped beside her, their presence igniting a fierce determination in Jess's heart, they faced the darkness together. The air crackled with energy, the shadows creeping back but halted before the light they now stood for. Bring it on, Jess declared, and together they surged forward, ready to forge their path against the looming shadow, the strength of their bond winding through the darkness like a lifeline. No longer alone, they would expose the shadows for what they were, and reclaim the light that belonged to them all. And as they fought, Jessica knew this was just the beginning. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's keep building this amazing community together.